Career Social Work Award to Kathleen North. Kathleen, could you come forward? So, I first met Kathleen before Katrina, when she was working for Daughters of Charity, and she was one of the pioneers, along with Jefferson Parish Human Services Authority, in the whole evidence-based practice of housing first, which at that time was not being practiced by our continuum of care. And as a result, we almost never housed someone who was living on the street. And that was true across the country, because we thought you had to be ready. We thought you had to prove yourself ready for housing before we would offer you housing. That's how everybody used to think in this field. And there was beginning to be, actually, by that time, there was actually a lot of proven research that we weren't yet aware of that showed that that was not true at all. And that, in fact, almost everyone could be housed even if they had severe substance use problems and even if they had severe mental health problems that weren't being addressed yet. And that you could not expect people to fix themselves while they were having to use the sidewalk as their pillow. You need to provide the housing and the services together. It's not really housing first, it's housing and services together. But it has been called housing first, and it is now the only proven way to end people's homelessness. It is proven to work in the vast majority of cases. Across the country, it works 90% of the time. In our continuum of care, it works 95% of the time. And Kathleen was one of the pioneers. When she was at Daughters of Charity, she somehow talked them into letting her do this. I don't know how she did that.
She's a social worker.
She's a social worker, a licensed clinical social worker. And so after Katrina, when we were faced with more than 11,000 literally homeless people, most of whom were squatting in abandoned buildings, forming, remember those huge camps we had? We think we have large camps now, but nothing compared to the camps that we had after Katrina. So when I was looking for a social worker to run what was then, this was a pioneering idea, that we would actually have a permanent supportive housing registry, that we would attempt to actually assess and collect the names of everybody, or as many people as we could find, and actually assess who was the sickest of the sick, so we could determine, instead, we would throw out the old rules. Instead of looking for the person who was the most likely to succeed in housing, so that we would look good with our stats, we were turning it totally around. We were looking for the person who had the worst problems and needed the housing the most. The person who was the sickest of the sick, with mental health issues, any other issues, had been homeless the longest. And we actually used something called the Vulnerability Index. And Kathleen was the person who figured out how to do all that and ran that. And then from there, she went on to being an integral part of our outreach team, assessing clients on the street, clients who are way too sick to come into an appointment. She would assess them right then and there on the spot, diagnose them, figure out what to do, get them into housing. And during the pandemic, I mean, I don't know how to describe what Kathleen did, except that it was a miracle. Because Kathleen figured out how to get everybody out of the encampments into the hotels. She figured out how to do it in a very organized way. She had a whole bunch of social work students helping her. Of course, our amazing outreach team was absolutely key to that. But Kathleen really led that effort, and then she led the team of people of case managers in the hotels. And you know, one of the very first things that happened in our second round was we had just gotten permission, because we're using resources from the city and state and FEMA resources. So we had just gotten permission to put 92 people in one hotel, 2 hotels, I can't remember. We didn't even know these people because we just took them all out of an encampment. And 2 days later, Hurricane Ida hit. Kathleen and her team, and she didn't really know her team too well because she just hired them, are having to figure out how to keep people, most of whom had severe mental illness, how to keep them from totally decompensating in an atmosphere where there was no power, no light. A lot of them had serious physical health issues. We didn't know what those issues were. And somehow she miraculously did that, went on after Ida, did more of that. Now she is in a key position at the VA, which is one of our most important partners, where she is head of their coordinated entry and is participating as a member of our Continuum of Care Governing Council. And there's so much more I can say, but Kathleen really epitomizes the ideal of social work. You go where the need is, you go where the clients are, you do what the clients need, and you're not rigidly bound by old ways of doing things, but you're looking at what the research is telling you and what the clients are telling you that they need. So Kathleen, we can never thank you enough for all you're doing. We know you're going to continue to do just great work in the Continuum of Care in your new role. We're really excited about that. I forgot to mention that you were one of the key leaders of the initiative that got us to be the first city that ended veteran homelessness effectively back in 2014. And so thank you for all you've done, and congratulations, Kathleen.